Hello and welcome to Theology Project. I'm Dr. Matt O'Reilly, and today we're asking the question, is the church ready for a post-Roe v. Wade world? My guest today is Kirk Walden, and we're going to have some discussion around that question and some other related questions. But first, let me just say, Kirk, welcome to Theology Project. Glad to have you on board.
Well, it's great to be with you, Matt. You're an old friend. I'm old and you're a friend. And I've known you for quite a while now. So This is great to get back together in this venue and talk about what's an amazing subject at this particular time in our history.
It is good. Viewers may be interested to know Kirk and I go back probably 20, 25 years. I was a child and he was an adult. So I want to clarify that.
Things have changed. I'm becoming more of a child and you've turned into an adult. So.
We were part of the same church in Alabama, and a really healthy church. Great time there in Opelika, Alabama, and grateful. I know we're both grateful for that season of our lives.
Yes, absolutely.
So Kirk is a significant figure in the pro-life movement. He has experience leading women's pregnancy help centers, and you've worked as a director in Auburn.
I did 9 years there. Women's Hope Medical Clinic there in Auburn, Alabama. Sure.
So he has been on the front lines of the pro-life movement in that way. He now travels around the country, maybe the world. You can tell us about that. Speaking at benefits and events that are aimed at helping advance the pro-life cause and raise money for pregnancy help centers. He and I saw each other together in Montgomery just a few months ago, back in November, for the local event here. And my understanding, Kirk, is that you've raised tens of millions of dollars for this movement. And can I just say thank you for your work on that?
It's an honor to be able to do that. Started speaking at events in 2000, so 22 years of that, and we're somewhere north of $51 million that I've been a part of. I'd love to say it was me, but the fact of the matter is, when you see the vision of these ministries, I just get to hop on board, and getting to do that is amazingly fun. I get to meet a lot of great people, and in addition to speaking, I get to work with these centers across the country, just doing some coaching and visiting with directors and boards to help them in their envisioning and growth, as they are just blooming across this country right now.
Well, that is one of the reasons I asked you to be on this interview, because you've got such a broad range of engagement and experience with the pro-life movement across the United States. I'll tell viewers as well, Kirk has a book called The Wall that is focused on rebuilding a culture of life in America. And so I'll drop a link in the description below to that. You can see that his resources there. He also has a website, kirkwalden.com, where you can find other resources, podcasts, different kinds of materials. Kirk, you've also got a new book coming out here before too long. You want to give us a quick preview of that?
Quickly, although I'm still working on it. It's called Saving Samaria, and it's how Jesus dealt with the most contentious social issue of his time, using compassion as, interestingly enough, a weapon, and how we can do the same thing in the great social issues of our day, including the one we're talking about today, life. And so I'm excited about it. Should be out the end of July.
Outstanding. Thanks for your work on that, and we look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court. That's really why we're having this conversation today. We had this anticipated ruling, and then just a couple of weeks ago, there was this surprising leak that indicated the possibility that Roe v. Wade might be overturned this year. What does that, talk us through the implications? What does that mean? What are the opportunities? What are the liabilities? What are we looking at as a nation and as a church?
Simply put, so many things. One is, if the Supreme Court should rule to overrule Roe and uphold Dobbs in Mississippi, the Dobbs versus Mississippi case, it turns abortion back to the states. It's that simple. Some states, if you look at California, Washington, New York, those states, not a thing changes. In a lot of states, there will be battlegrounds. And in some states, you're going to see trigger laws go into effect, which will make abortion illegal at different stages, depending on the law. Some at 6 weeks, some it's when the heartbeat is detected, some it's later on at 15 weeks. And so we're going to see 50 states looking at this and dealing with this question. It goes back to the people.
Right.
And I think that's fascinating. We think that we're hearing that overturning Roe is taking away something. Actually, it's giving the authority back to the states and the people closest to you and closest to me to make the decisions. The people we can actually call on the phone and say, hey, here's what I think about this. So I'm excited about that.
This is probably a helpful time to maybe just reflect on American civics just a little bit, right? Because a lot of times we've heard in political discourse, and when some of the Supreme Court justices were being interviewed by the Congress, yeah, the comment, you hear the comment, well, Roe is settled law,
Right.
right? And I keep, every time I hear that, I think, like, these folks should know better, right? Because the Supreme Court, Roe is a Supreme Court ruling, and the Supreme Court doesn't write laws. They interpret laws, and no interpretation is really settled, I don't think.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about, we're not losing a law that guarantees abortion. That's not what's happening.
Not at all. The Supreme Court is basically saying, as we just noted, states, you have the responsibility and the right and the authority to speak to this issue. And I really think this is what federalism, going back to our civics lesson, this is what federalism is. And the court is allowing for federalism. Let's have incubators in 50 states, and we'll look at what's working and what's not working. How does it change society? But when you have a sweeping decision like Roe, which struck down all these state laws, we eliminated that ability of the states to make these decisions. And so we had no way of knowing what works and what doesn't. Speaking totally objectively, not as somebody who's life affirming, we need more federalism.
So that's interesting. I haven't thought about it quite this way before. You're saying Roe has sort of put a cap on on different groups and their ability to creatively explore how to care for women, for children, all right, like, and now this will create some space for different people, different parts of the country and different states to actually try some different things and say, hey, here's a way we can offer care, here's a way we can offer support, and then we get to look back and just say, well, it works, that works better than this. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, and not only that, now the people have the opportunity to decide in which state, because we are a fairly mobile society for a lot of us. Some of us are not in a situation where we can pick up and move, but someone say I'm going to be totally dispassionate here for a moment. Let's say you're in a life affirming state where abortion is outlawed. If that's a problem for you, then you can move from that state to another state. However, if you're uncomfortable with the fact that, say, New York wants to codify Roe, as they say, which really they're not doing, but make abortion legal for all 9 months for any reason, even to the point of, we could look at infanticide here. If that's not where you want to be, and if you're done with trying to change the laws, then you can move somewhere else to a state that's more in line with your thinking. And I'm living here in Tennessee, and we're having people move in here from Illinois, from New York. I had some neighbors move in the other day from California, and just in my neighborhood, we're seeing this because people are saying that the friends of mine from California, they came in and they said, we just couldn't stay there anymore. And that's what federalism does. Instead of having blanket laws, we can look at this from a different perspective. And for the life affirming perspective, one thing, the life affirming people are going to say, well, why don't we just outlaw it in all 50 states? And I say, well, this is a step in that direction, because if we then have, say, 38 states that say, we believe that abortion needs to be limited or eliminated altogether, you get 38 states, you can pull together an amendment and then take that to the federal level. But this way, it's the states making the decision, not just 9 justices.
Right. And so, and that's really one of the major arguments is who makes the decision.
Right.
And in the past, the Supreme Court has taken it upon itself to make that decision. Now the court is saying we're going to step back from that role and let the states make the decision. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
so
that's going to be interesting.
That's not the narrative we always hear in the media, though, is it?
No. What we're hearing is, the ban's off my bodies and all that, those kind of things. And now they've gone into those who oppose the court overturning Roe. They've gone into, well, they're going to outlaw birth control. They're going to outlaw marriages of different race, interracial marriage, all these things. And I'm saying, really, that has got nothing to do with any of this.
Right.
What they're saying is the states get to decide. And my representative, I can pick up the phone and say, here's what I believe about this. Where are you on this? I can't call Justice Kavanaugh or Justice Roberts. I just can't. And it's even hard to get hold of a U.S. senator or something like that. But I can call my state representative, and he's going to walk through my neighborhood, or she's going to walk through my neighborhood and ask for my vote, and I can look that person in the eye. And I think that is one of the best ways to decide these issues.
Kind of create some accountability, some engagement, some correspondence. That's helpful, very helpful.
It absolutely does.
Well, let's talk about the role of the church in this. I think that's what we're particularly interested in. I think it's what Theology Project viewers are going to be interested in. Our question is the church ready for a post-Roe world? Talk to us a little bit about what has been happening before now and what needs to happen next as far as the church, Christian denominations, and parachurch organizations. What have we done and what do we still need to do to be ready to care for the folks who are going to be carrying babies to term that maybe before wouldn't have done that? Like, just talk us through those dynamics.
There are going to be a lot of dynamics on that end. I believe the church is ready. I also believe the church needs to step up to take it to a whole new level, because it's going to be easy should this decision come down and it stays the way the leak said it was going to go, that there's a majority of 5-4 opinion, maybe 6-3 in the end, I don't know. But I believe what's going to happen is that there are going to be more needing the services of the church. And the church extended is through pregnancy help organizations, which I've worked with for all these years. And the good news is, Matt, and we've talked about this off air, these ministries have grown over the years. In say late 70s, maybe 1980, there may be a couple of hundred pregnancy help centers in this country. Not one of them was a medical clinic at that time that I know of. Maybe one, maybe two. Today, there are 2,750 of these ministries across the country, and close to 2,000 of them are medical. They offer ultrasound. Many are offering STI and STD testing, all kinds of things, and even some prenatal care, as the one in Auburn does. Where I served, we offered 20 weeks of prenatal care. So we're ready. What we need is the support of the church and people in the church to say, my mission field is over there, because some people in this situation aren't going to walk into a church. In fact, most of them won't. But we can be an extension of the church to build a bridge from the church down the road to bring them into the church. It's a great evangelism opportunity. Unbelievable right now.
So we went, in the last 50 years, we went from less than 200 pregnancy help centers and medical clinics,
yes,
to almost 3,000 help centers and over 2,000 clinics.
Multiplied 10 times.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's a testimony as well. And this will help us with one of the things I want us to chat about. Is you hear a lot, and I've heard this in the last few weeks, Christians, evangelicals don't really care about the moms. They just care about the unborn. They're not really interested in compassion ministries. They just want to, have a political agenda, save the fetus, those kinds of things. And in my experience, you have more experience in this than I do, and I want to hear from yours. In my experience of knowing folks, family members, and other people who worked at the center in Auburn, we're here just outside of Montgomery, Alabama now.
Sure.
And our church has a strong relationship with the center here. These are not folks who just care about, the baby. The center here has parenting classes for moms and dads. Like there are men who are being taught how to step in and be positive fathers in their children's lives. Like this is way bigger than the baby.
Right.
And my guess is it's probably like that all over the country.
Can you
speak to that?
It is. I think the problem that we face as a church is that those who oppose us or oppose the life community are so politically minded that it's hard to see anything else. And so when they see the political activity on, I hate to use labels, but we'll just, for the sake of this, on the right, when they see this, they say, well, you don't care about the babies. You're just trying to pass laws. They don't see what's going on under the radar. And we're not out there advertising everything we do, because as Christians, that's not our goal. Our goal is to reach the hurting. Our goal is to be that good Samaritan and reach out to the wounded woman who comes in our door, who's trying to figure out what to do, and the wounded dad, as you mentioned so well. Because a lot of times these dads don't have father figures of their own. They have no clue what to do. And so we're offering mentoring. We've got men out there that are helping these guys find jobs and do all these different things. And so you're right, it is so much bigger than the political. And I think one of our challenges is, as those of us who are Christians step into the public square, we need to do so with worn out, dirty hands from reaching the messy situations and pulling people out and saying, we're with you and we'll walk with you through this time. I say to the people who would attack us, talk to my friend Dan in Rochester, New York, who was the first person, he and his wife, to go into China and adopt a Down syndrome girl. First people to do that in history. And he speaks at life affirming events just like I do. And I'd have a list a mile long of these people who have adopted, who do foster care, who do all these things to say, we want to be a part of this. And that one of the things related to what you said, the accusation is, well, if you're going to make these moms have children, adopt them. And I go, okay, because we've got a line of Christian families a mile long waiting to adopt, not only healthy white children, because that's what we hear, but those with special needs, those who are in between the cracks or whatever, those even some who are a little bit older as well. So the line is long of those who are more than happy to adopt and be there.
No, that's right. And I know, I mean, it's anecdotal, but I know multiple families who are eager to adopt. They've raised the money and they're just waiting. And so the adoption movement among evangelical Christians has been huge in the last few years.
They're going to Asia, they're going to Eastern Europe because they're not available here. Because we've given women, unfortunately, a binary choice between abortion and parenting that child. And that's not fair to her. Yeah. She needs to know that adoption is available as well. It's up to her, but she needs to know that option is so available to her.
Yeah. It's worth, I think, pointing out as well, and I've seen this misconception among some clergy colleagues and other folks in the church. Like abortion, like people don't realize that Planned Parenthood and organizations like them, and abortion is disproportionately higher amongst ethnic minorities, right? Yeah. And like Planned Parenthood sets up in impoverished parts of cities and targets, for lack of a better word, I guess.
I can't argue with you. That's a good term.
Those who are impoverished and have fewer options and smaller support networks, if any support network.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the pregnancy help centers set up as close as they can to be an option, right? And so I think, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit. This is really an option in our polarized society, right? Where we hear a lot about racism and we hear a lot about class, distinctions and the erosion of the middle class. What we really wind up with is Christians who are working in pregnancy help centers who are engaging across racial and ethnic lines and across socioeconomic lines. I mean, can you talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, interestingly, one of the most dynamic and integrated events I've ever been to, of all places in the world, was in Selma, Alabama a few years ago, where we had black, white, doesn't matter, all together in a room saying we've got to solve this issue. But yes, Christians are going into minority communities. My friend Tammy Coker at New Life Family Services in Minneapolis, Rochester, Minnesota, she has planted a center, a $3.2 million building right in the middle of the area where George Floyd was killed a couple of years ago. They're building a $3.2 million facility there where they're going to do not only prenatal care, pregnancy testing, ultrasound, all that, but they're going to do well family care as well. They're going to reach the families in that community. And we're seeing pregnancy centers reach out and expand into that area. And so we are doing everything we can. One of the things, and because this is kind of what I do, one of the challenges we have is funding. We're not getting federal funding. We're not getting much state funding. Every once in a while we do, but we have to raise it on our own. And maybe this is to our credit. We're saying, look, we can't do the government funding thing because we're faith-based, but we're going in, and regardless of the cost to ourselves, we're going to go into these areas and reach out to these women. I was in Texas, interesting story, which is kind of related to this. I was talking to them about their banquet that night. And I said, what do you need? What is the funding needs that you have? And she said, I need a door right here between the lobby and this hallway. And I said, well, what do you need the door for? To me, that's not an exciting thing to raise funds for, a door. And she said, well, traffickers come in here and I see the guns on their hip. And the young lady, we take her back and they want to know if her test is positive so they can take her straight to the abortion clinic and get her back on the street. We need that door because we can call the sheriff's office and we can get them picked up in the back and they don't see it. And so we can literally save their lives if we have a door. And I said, okay, I'll raise monies for that. That's for sure.
Get that door.
Yeah. But then I asked, well, what about you? She says, I don't care, because she was going to be next. They were going to take it out on somebody. But for that door, she was willing to take the chance as long as she could free that girl from the traffickers. We're doing things people can't imagine we're out there doing.
Yeah. And I think these are the kinds of things that don't make the headlines, right?
Right.
Like pregnancy help center workers are literally battling human trafficking and slavery.
Yes.
Like literally. I've read one of Abby Johnson's books, where she narrates, I forget which one off the top of my head, but she narrates the stories of different women.
That is my dog.
No, it's okay. Welcome. Abby narrates the stories of different women who used to work in abortion clinics and have come out, and a number of them tell the story of, like, we know that these are people who are trafficking women, and the women get impregnated and they bring them here to deal with it, and then we send them back out on the streets. Like, they know that Planned Parenthood is facilitating the trafficking.
Yes.
That whole crime system.
They are.
And pregnancy centers are freeing women.
That's right.
So don't tell me we don't care about women.
Yeah.
We're saving them. We're trying, like, these centers are people are literally saving women from slavery.
Yeah.
And sexual exploitation.
And they're willing to, like this center director in Texas, she's willing to take a bullet for that girl.
That's incredible.
And we totally overlook that. And we just say, well, it's a political issue. No, this is a people issue.
Yeah.
These are women and men who are struggling with a decision and they're terrified. And somebody needs to be willing to step up with them. And I'm not here to beat up on Planned Parenthood, but they don't do that. They offer a service for a price where they make profits. And again, not to get too expansive about this, but they're making really good money doing what they're doing. I look at pregnancy centers, and every time someone makes a decision for life, in effect, it costs that center money. It costs them money, but they're willing to put that out there. And I see, here's the difference. If you make the decision Planned Parenthood wants, they make a lot of money. If you make the decision the pregnancy center wants, they say, you know what, we're going to start giving to you. And we're going to give, and we're going to give, and we're going to give. Even if we don't have much left to give, we're going to continue to do so. And the media and all those in the political realm, they don't want to talk about that.
Just on that contrast, it should be easy to tell who your friends are.
Yeah, it really is. And it's interesting how the language is turned upside down. The language of compassion seems to be on the side of those who are in the abortion industry. Oh, she needs this. She needs, and I don't doubt that there are women who are thinking that's their only option. Absolutely, that's true. But what she needs is somebody. The best answer to a woman facing an unexpected pregnancy is another person who's willing to walk with them through it. And from a theological aspect, or really just simply from a Jesus aspect, I have to ask that question. What would he do? A young lady comes to him with a pregnancy and not sure what to do. Well, there's a clinic down the road, and here's $500 for my followers who have collected this for you. I don't see that. I'm sorry. We can talk all around this issue, but if we call ourselves followers of Jesus Christ, I don't think any of us, in all honesty, would see Jesus doing that. I could see him holding her hand during delivery. I can see him providing things for her. I can see him saying, hey, you can be one of my followers too. He had many women following him as well as the 12 men. I can see all of those. I can't see him saying, you're going to fail as a mom, so your only answer is to get rid of this.
Yeah. No, I think that's tremendously helpful way to kind of bring the Bible to life and really consider what it means to be a follower of Jesus when it comes to this question of life and how we're going to care for people, for women in very vulnerable situations.
We use, I'll throw in one more thing, Matt. We use a lot of labels these days, and even one of them is pro-life. I have to admit, that's a label. Well, I'm pro-choice. Well, I'm pro, all these things. We cast people into labels. And I've come to the point, Matt, where if somebody asks me, now, if you were to ask me, you're pro-life, right, Kirk? I'd say, yeah, because you and I know each other. We understand each other and understand that terminology. But if someone were to come to me today and say, are you pro-life? And I don't know where they stand, where they come from, I'd say something like, I don't know much about labels, but I do know this. As a follower of Christ, when I see someone facing an unexpected pregnancy, it's not her problem, but it's my concern too. And as a result, my duty is to reach out to her and to him involved in this and help walk them through this time so that they can make a decision that brings life not only to their family, but to the child and to everyone else involved, a life worth living. And so that's where I fall. And if you want to put a label on it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm called to do.
I think that's incredibly helpful. And it reminds me of the local organization here frequently says, we're not just pro-life, we're pro-abundant life.
Yeah.
And that I love it because it draws on scriptural language.
John 10:10. Yeah.
From Jesus himself, who and it communicates that we care more about votes and we care. Like I remember the statement being said at one of the banquets one time, even if Roe is overturned, right? That doesn't it doesn't change what we do, right? We're not done.
Yeah.
That's not really like we'll have even more work to do. And
right. And we're ready.
Yeah, and we're ready. And that doesn't change hearts. What changes hearts is when our ministries, when our churches, when our centers, who are largely staffed by people who are part of the life of the church, like when we come alongside people. And I think that's exactly right. I want to hear a little bit of, this was a question that I'll ask you, because I've seen, like on social media, you'll hear all kinds of wild stuff. But one thing that comes up occasionally is that like this isn't something that like millennials or young people, right, college students or early adults, like they don't care about this, or they're mainly pro-choice and they're not part of the pro-life movement. And this is just something like a bunch of baby boomers or whoever's are involved in. Is that a fair way to speak, or have you had a different experience?
Let me speak to that, because what's fascinating to me is that this generation, this young generation, not us boomers, that would be me and not you, but I'm still in that generation and they're making fun of me all the time about it. But the youngest generation that we have that's just coming of voting age is actually more life affirming than generations before it. I was in DC in 2020, January of 2020, right before the March for Life. I was in a group that was invited to Vice President Pence's office from Heartbeat International, which is the largest affiliate network of life affirming pregnancy help centers in the world. Well, also there were Students for Life of America, Kristen Hawkins and her group, and she had a bunch of students there. And so we're all sitting around this giant ornate table in Vice President Pence's, what is it called? Celebratory office? I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of these offices where he swears in cabinet members. It was a ceremonial. That's what it is.
Gotcha.
So we're sitting in there, sitting around the table and hearing these kids tell their stories of being on college campuses and standing for life is just amazing. And so I would say there are some loud people on the left who try to tell us that this isn't true anymore. Kids don't care about that. But the amazing thing to me about this generation that's coming up and is going to take my place is that the millennials, as we call them, or whatever generation we're calling it now, they are absolutely passionate about changing the world. And I love that. We see a lot of young people in pregnancy centers that are already working, and we see them in all sorts of life affirming communities. So it's an exciting time for me.
Yeah. And I've observed those same trends in recent decades. A lot of the focus has been on compassion and charity, and rightly so. And that's crucial, and that's really important.
Sure.
But also, in political discourse, civil discourse today, we hear a lot about social justice, which is often sort of lodged with kind of politically left agendas
Can be.
things like that in the narratives. But it also resonates with young people. And I wonder if more young people aren't getting involved in the movement for life because they see it as a justice issue, right? They're reading their Bibles. They're reading about a God who cares about the poor, a God who speaks up for those who have no voice. They're reading the scriptures say, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, Proverbs 31 says. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. And those aren't negating compassion and charity, but they are including justice, right? And they want to, and these people want to speak up for the preborn who have no voice because they haven't yet breathed air outside their mother's womb. But they also want to speak up for the women who often live, as we said, in impoverished parts of their communities. They're not just calling up their state representatives on the phone to have their voice heard, right? They feel like they don't have options. And if they did have options, if someone did hear their voice and care for them and give them a voice, if they had the support they needed, many of them would choose to keep not in their pregnancies. And so I wonder if there's a new generation of the pro-life movement who are committed to charity and compassion, but are also committed to justice.
Well, you're right about the young people because they do want social justice. And what I think I'm seeing in young people a lot is that they're seeing not just the child, but they're seeing the mom as being marginalized, as you alluded to. And she's the one cast on the side of the road. If we're going to be the Good Samaritan, that's who we're going to look for. And as we do this, the young people are saying, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be a part of because I can see this. And yes, I'll be a part of the child's life as well. It's so important, but it's the mom. And as they reach the mom, these young people reach the mom, they're finding their passion, they're finding their purpose in a lot of ways. So I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm seeing in young people today.
Good. So I hear you saying the church is ready for a post-Roe world, but there's work to do. Tell us very super practical, what can listeners do if they want to get involved to help make the United States a healthier place after Roe is overturned?
Yeah, I truly believe that we can be abortion free, almost abortion free in this country. And I do believe that the rise of the pregnancy help ministries has helped make that happen. And so if I'm sitting out there and saying, okay, I got to do something, obviously we can give financially, we can talk about that for hours, but just one step up in giving can make a huge difference. But there's something else. There are a lot of professionals listening to this podcast. There are pastors listening to this podcast or YouTube cast. I don't know what we even call it because I am a boomer, Matt. You got to understand that. But as we look at this YouTube channel as a pastor, I'm saying, okay, how can I engage my church? Because it's a tough issue for a pastor. It's very tough because we got people on all sides. But if we say there is an answer, and it's to raise our compassion quotient, it's to step into this. And I want to invite us to be a part of the pregnancy help ministry in our area. That's one. And if I'm looking at this from a professional standpoint, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant or something like that. These groups need you to step in and say, we need a financial advisor right now. We need that accountant. We need an attorney to help us negotiate all the things we need to do, from basic coverage and insurance to everything else. So there are a lot of things a professional can do, and there are ways we can step in. I think a lot of us are overwhelmed by the idea of sitting down with someone who is facing the most important decision of their lives. I say you don't have to do that. There are a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities in these ministries to step up. And it's my firm belief, Matt, that laws can limit abortion, but it's the Christian community that can actually end it in communities and in cities and in states.
Yeah. And I want to echo everything you just said. Listeners who are maybe afraid of saying, well, I'm going to go volunteer because I don't know what to say and I don't want
Right.
to go volunteer. They're not going to put you in the counseling room on day one.
No, they're not.
You'll be folding diapers or something like that, or
Yeah.
onesies in the baby in the where you can go purchase stuff in the store or earn rewards. So there are lots of jobs. We've got a young man in our church who handles the landscaping at the local resource center and answering the phones, all those kinds of things. And let me say this to the pastors: this will be a more fruitful mission and ministry opportunity if the pastors lead from the pulpit.
Yes.
And you don't have to politicize it, right?
No. Mm-mm.
I think regardless of which side of the aisle we sit on, we can say, hey, there are women who are vulnerable in our communities and they need us to care for them. And
Yeah.
and these pregnancy help centers are in relationship with those vulnerable women. And
Yes.
you can be red, you can be blue, and you can care about that.
That's exactly right. And there are going to be congregations that have different views on how to vote in elections based on a variety of issues. But one place we can come together is saying she needs help right now.
Yep.
How do we as a church reach out to her? We're not asking you to tell your congregation how to vote. We're asking you to tell them how to care. And
Yep.
if we can do that, we can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So jump on Google and say, where's the nearest pregnancy help center near me? And the list will come up and you can get to work tomorrow.
Actually, an easier route than that, optionline.org. Optionline.org, you can find any center within 50 miles of where your location is.
Outstanding.
Put your town or zip code in there, optionline, all one word, .org.
Outstanding. I didn't know about that. So in the description, we'll put Kirk's resources. We'll put a link to optionline.org. You can find the center nearest you and be a part of the church's ministry in a post-Roe world. We need your help.
Exactly.
Kirk, thanks so much for taking the time to do this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's been a blast and hope to see you again. We'll do something else sometime.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Thanks a lot.
All right.